Listening to Bill and Teona whine about the region, where we talk about government and the politics behind it, nonprofit and the people behind it, business and the money behind it. Let's go T.
Good morning. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to hear Bill and Teona whine about the region. If you have any ideas, topics, or people to interview for the show, or interested in advertising or sponsoring the show, message us on Facebook at BT Winery or email us at btwinery@gmail.com. I'm back.
Yeah, there we go. T in the house. T in the house.
Did y'all miss me last week? Did you miss me, Bill?
Of course I missed you, but it was nice to have the Councilwoman Rita Days
She
here.
held it down.
She is a natural.
She held it down, didn't she? She
Yeah.
gave me my birthday off. That was a very nice birthday present.
Yeah.
I wish it would have been raining like this morning is raining where I could. I was like, dang, why wasn't this last weekend? But it was still nice to enjoy my birthday weekend. I had a very nice, probably 2-week stretch of just enjoying turning 43 and trying to hang out with my younger sisters and keep my youth and
There you go.
all of that. So
Red,
it was fun,
red hair
fun,
and everything.
Fun. Red hair. One more week of the red hair because it really does give me life. This is my birthday look, Jake. I know I look a little bit unprofessional right now.
We will take all the redheads we can get in this town.
I'm
On behalf of all my redheaded sisters and brothers, I would like to welcome you to the club. Please stay a while.
All right.
All right.
Well, before we get started, we want to go ahead and thank Paul Berry and the good folks here at
Always.
WGNU 920 AM for the
Always.
opportunity to talk to the community that we all here care about. And we
Yes.
do want to go ahead and give a shout out. You just heard, I believe, a ad for the show, for the Pascal show. I want to go ahead and shout out the
Shout you
Pascal
out.
show. Running 9 to noon, Monday through Friday. Check him out. He's got a great show.
He does his thing. He does his thing.
Now, for next week, we're still working on the show. We'll let you know, what develops on that, and we'll post that on our social media and everything. But we have enough going on today.
We have
Today, we're going to get into the race for the St. Louis County Executive, which promises to be a nail biter.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, Bill,
Yes, ma'am.
didn't you run for county executive before?
I heard that story.
Is it weird for you to kind of like say, hey, I'm just going to sit this out and
Nah, well,
you're on
no,
the radio now,
I-
you're a big time radio personality, so.
we just two hacks with a show. That's what happened.
But you ran, so.
Yeah, I did
Why did
run.
you run for county executive?
I ran because I think I saw what definitely a lot of political insiders recognized is that we had an administration that had ran afoul of not just the law, but I think the citizens of this region. And I think, time obviously proved that. So that's really, the impetus I had for getting involved in that race. Even though I've always had an interest in running for office, I never knew exactly what that would be. But I thought that, that was the time and appropriate thing for me to do at the time. So that's what I did.
And the burning question is, because everybody thought you were paid to get out and big
Yeah,
time.
which is ridiculous. I heard that from a few.
Yeah, I heard that. So
that I was paid to get in and paid to get out.
Yeah.
And the rumor was on both sides of my other, at the time, two Democratic opponents.
Why
It was
did you
coming
get out
from
the
both
race?
sides.
Yeah.
Like one side paid me to get in, the other side paid me to get out. I'm like, what are y'all talking about?
So what's the truth? Give us the burning truth right now.
Okay, well, the truth is, I told you why I got in. The reason why I got out is because, honestly, to run for an office that size, for a county with 1 million plus people, you're talking about the economic engine of the state of Missouri with, almost 25% of the economic output.
Okay.
In order to run an effective campaign for that office takes resources,
Okay.
and I couldn't keep up with Shakedown Stanger and Money Manavani.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
it pretty much amounts to that.
And so we are coming up on 2020, and we have candidates. One actually here with us today that have announced their run.
Yeah.
Are you planning to run in 2020? Are you planning? Are you leaning towards one or the other? For us, the people that are already in the race. I mean.
I've had some people ask me. I don't have a significant interest in running for county executive this coming year in 2020. I think that my purpose, the way I can best serve the community, is to do things to help people keep engaged in things that are going on. I would like to run for office at some point in the future, but I also recognize that. As far as politics and especially electoral politics are concerned, there is a such thing as timing, and sometimes the time, is wrong, and sometimes the time is right.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me also just say, we have a candidate that is on our show today. We welcome actually both candidates. If the other candidate wants to come talk to us, we welcome them. So are you looking to, or right now, are you kind of solid on, I'm leaning against this person or that person, or we're really kind of just, we have an opportunity to interview a candidate today, we're going to talk to him. The other candidate, are you going to wait and kind of try to hear both? Or
you mean as far as who I might personally support?
Who you might put, because because you've been in the race before, and because you're just a man, you've been the right hand for the county executive.
You better let them know.
I'm just saying, so your support matters. Who you decide to get behind, Bill, that's a big deal. So I just want to know, have you made your decision yet?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I have not made, necessarily a decision on who I'm going to support. But the thing is, having this platform, I'd like to create an opportunity for, the most viable candidates and candidates in general to be able to come in and make their case.
Right.
That helps me make my decision, and hopefully helps inform the community at the same time. So.
Well, with that being said. Great. I know Jake. Jake's been around for a long, long time, and Jake has had runs. He's inspired me on, being unsuccessful at one of your races you ran, and you held your head high and you did your thing. So,
let me make a proper introduction so folks know who we have here and who we're talking to today.
Okay.
We do have someone that has announced that he will be running for county executive against apparently the current county executive, and that is our guest today. This is the current county assessor for St. Louis County and candidate for county executive, the Honorable Jake Zimmerman.
You get an hour, Jake.
I get an hour and I get an honorable?
Honorable.
Yes, you get a whole hour today. Because you need an hour, because we need to ask you a few questions.
We're going to talk.
Yeah, we're going to talk.
Well, I do want to mention this before I get to just a couple of questions. Jake, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Jake. Jake is actually the one of 4 people that I consulted with when I was making my decision to run for county executive. Because you don't run for an office like that by committee. You have to pick out who the people are that you trust, that you want to just get their opinion and find out what they're thinking about doing. Because I wanted to find out what he was thinking, and I talked to Jake. I'll tell you exactly what I talked to. I talked to Jake. I talked to former county executive Charlie Dooley. I talked to Mike Jones, and I talked to Rita Days.
Okay, that's a good little slate of people.
And of course Hazel Irby, but I always talk to Hazel.
yeah, but that's a good slate of people. So Jake, I know we have some questions for you today, but first of all, county assessor, what do you do? Like, right? And that ain't even on the script.
You telling?
I always go off script, everybody out there, and it's like, okay, St. Louis County assessor. You can say that, but people are like, all right.
I guess you haven't been reading Glamour magazine because we're on the front page every month.
Really?
The county assessor is the most glamorous job in all of public service.
Okay.
All right, so here's the serious answer.
Okay.
The people elected me to be the first elected county assessor in St. Louis County in 50 years. And for those who are a little bit older, they'll remember the scandal of the drive-by assessments and some of the other problems in that office, going back 15 years ago.
Okay.
So the people of this county voted to change the charter.
Absolutely.
And in 2011, we elected an assessor for the first time. So I was sent in as the cleanup crew because our job is to value your property, based on what it can actually sell for. And that means treating everybody the same, whether their home is worth $50,000 or whether it's $5 billion. And I ran on a platform back in 2011 of accountability, integrity, fairness, no special deals, and treating everybody right and listening to every taxpayer.
I like that.
Yeah, well, and just a full disclosure, I want folks to know that I have known Jake since around that time, since 2011. I've in the past done some work on your campaign and even some volunteer related work in my free time, and I was one of the folks that helped you do some outreach, in order to get in that county assessor's
the very
role.
first political or governmental staffer ever to hear me speak in a church? I think you may have that.
I may have been, and I was blown away because he's Jake. I don't know whether I don't know what kind of memory he has. It must be tremendous because we would walk into churches. Well, no, we would walk into churches and he would read the pamphlet or the booklet or whatever. He'd look at some things on the wall that some anniversaries, and he would internalize all that, never having seen it before, and weave it into his speech. And I was just amazed.
And now I got to tell you what I learned from Jake. Now, first of all, Jake is always around. He's always in North County or minority areas. I like that he will come to, whether it's Castle Point, he'll come to Kinlock if he has to, Berkeley. He'll come to the meetings, he'll say his spiel. And one time he was somewhere, and one thing he taught me was, when you're canvassing and you're at somebody's house, like you say he looked on the wall or whatever, look at the house and always say something like, oh, okay, that's a very nice flower bed. You may not even, whatever about the flower bed, but find something detailed. And you probably don't remember this because it was a long time ago, but it was at North County Labor. And you're like, you get out there, you knock on the doors, and if they have a yellow door, that's a beautiful yellow door. And I was like, you know what? So I want you to know I use that now. When I canvas, I'll find something like, oh my goodness, the flag is great.
Everybody in this story is a human being, and people who are running for office and they think somehow that you're better than everybody else, you are missing the point.
Right,
you want to talk to people where they are.
You got to connect to people. You got to connect to people, and we'll keep connecting here with Jake Zimmerman, Bill and Teona, Wine About the Region, WGNU 920. Be right back. All right, yeah, and we got plenty of questions. So we're going to. We'll be able to see how we're doing definitely after the first segment.
And we'll get into it.
And then we might cut some things down. We'll let you know as we go along. But there's some things we're gonna make sure.
You met me. Do I look brief?
Yeah. But that's why I wasn't worried about it.
Yeah, you do definitely get the point across. So. X was pretty excited to have you on. X was like, yeah, we've got the big wings. I was like, you go.
Well, I'm
It's like
excited
y'all
to
did it
meet X.
again.
I didn't even know who he was.
X is like y'all did it again.
X is dynamic. If you need any media or anything, this is your
This is the
guy.
man.
He helps us so much.
So X, what's the story?
I don't know.
How did you wind up going down this path?
Politics or media?
Media.
Media, I guess I've messed around with cameras and audio since I was about 14, so I just kind of figured it was going to branch off into some kind of career.
And just FYI, so you know, we're still live.
Got it.
So
So if I'm going to say anything stupid, I should wait about an hour.
I'll just say, hey, let me loose.
Oh,
Let me loose.
okay.
Or you could just
All right.
say it and just do you. Hey, we like to make our show
I am-
interesting.
Tiana, I can always be stupid.
Okay, okay,
If you
all
need
right.
someone to be stupid, I can do
Yes,
that for you.
let's get stupid, Jake.
Should I not go live on breaks?
She what?
Should I cut the live on breaks?
No.
Okay.
What'd he say?
Should he cut the live on breaks? Like, nah.
Nah, this is reality.
Stuff.
This is reality.
All right, I'll bring this in and then we'll go right into the questions. Okay?
Okay. But you asked the first question.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm on my question. I'm ready.
You want me to move these out of the
Oh,
way?
you know that.
Okay.
No, those are for you. The water is for you. These are some good questions. We're just gonna let her rip. You got the whole hour. We normally stop to say our outro. like 3 minutes before the hour.
Alrighty.
I
And
forgot to
at the
shout
next
my
at the
son
next
out
break,
for
I'm
the
going to ask
shirt.
you how you got interested in politics. So
My
we're going to stay
baby.
tuned for that.
Sure. I'll say it at the end.
Pascal.
All right, we are back. Bill and Teona, Wine About the Region, here with County Assessor and candidate for County Executive, Jake Zimmerman.
Good morning, Jake.
Good morning.
Now, Jake, we're going to get right into some questions here because we going to be true to our name. We got plenty to whine about when it comes to some of the happenings.
It's time to whine.
in
It's
this
time to whine.
I'm ready.
Okay, so you just talked about how, about becoming the assessor for St. Louis County. What are your principal accomplishments as assessor, and how do they demonstrate that you're ready to be county executive? And do you have the experience needed to manage the St. Louis County budget and staff? Now we're talking about, I believe, 4,000 employees, give or take, and a budget of $600 million a year at this
One
point.
of the largest employers in the region, and my experience is exactly why people should consider voting for me, because I have run a government agency through some difficult times. A government agency that had its history of bad behavior, that had its history of not being responsive to taxpayers. That's why the people of this community voted to elect an assessor for the first time in 2011. And, for better or for worse, I have a record, and I'm proud to stand on that record. I promised that there would be no drive-by assessments, and there are no drive-by assessments. I promised that we would value everyone's property the same, whether it's a citizen in their home or a big corporation with lawyers in Gucci suits.
There you go.
And, when you look at when, for example, the casinos went looking for a giant tax windfall, right? They wanted to get millions of dollars knocked off of their property tax bill. Well, what happens if you give the casino $1 million that they don't deserve? You're taking it away from the school district and the fire department. So one of two things will happen. Either some teachers and some firefighters get laid off and lose their jobs, or every man, woman, and child in the community pays an extra $50, an extra $100 to make up for it. And one of the things I realized very early on in this job is that's not right. And if you go around at election time and you promise you're going to treat everybody fairly, then when the rubber hits the road, you can't back away from the fight just because the casinos have good lawyers. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm pretty proud of that record, and I think especially coming off of what St. Louis County has been through, the corruption, the embarrassment that Steve Stenger left behind. If ever you want someone who has spent his time in public service committed to fairness and integrity, you'd think that time would be now.
All right, well, Jake, tell us a little bit about your journey. You can make it brief, maybe talk like high school, college, then you decided to jump into politics. Let's hear a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm a St. Louis kid, born and bred. I went to public schools. I believe in public schools. Okay. I was blessed to get to go to college and law school on the West Coast and then the East Coast. But I came back home when a lot of my colleagues were looking to go work at big New York law firms. That never appealed to me. I wanted to be in this community, make a difference here. I was an assistant attorney general. I prosecuted consumer fraud, protected senior citizens who were victims of scams. I was legal counsel to Governor Bob Holden during a better time in Jefferson City. And I was lucky enough to be elected to the state legislature in 2006, where I fought on behalf of senior citizens and for election reform and for fairness throughout this community. And then in 2011, when the people voted to start electing the assessor for the first time, I decided that if I meant what I was saying about integrity, about accountability, then it was a fight I had to be in. And that's how I got here.
All right. Well, let's get into some other issues. For St. Louis County and the St. Louis region, who I think we've been traumatized. You mentioned corruption. I would say that we've been traumatized, honestly, by corruption. Your announcement makes a big deal of corruption, and you just mentioned a little bit about that a moment ago. Now that Steve Stenger is gone and we have said our goodbyes to the Stenger administration,
Yes.
do you think that's still an issue, corruption?
Well, of course it's still an issue. I mean, look at Washington, D.C. Look at the culture of total non-accountability with lobbyists in Jefferson City. And then look at the fact that on Monday morning, county employees who work for me, will go to work in an office building with a long-term lease signed by cronies of Steve Stenger to benefit developers who gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to his campaign. And you tell me that corruption isn't still an issue in St. Louis County. We've got to end the culture of backroom deals, of no accountability. We've got to get rid of the pay-to-play, and we've got to make St. Louis County government something that everyone can be proud of.
I heard that. All right. Should we still be worried about pay to play?
Well, Teona, if you're not worried about pay-to-play, then you're not paying attention.
Okay.
And again, look, it's not an accident that what happened in St. Louis County happened at the same time as Donald Trump, happened at the same time as Eric Greitens. There is something going on, and it's bigger even than America. There's something going on in civilized society right now. And I believe at the bottom of my heart that all of us who believe in democracy, who believe in those American values that we took for granted, who believe that society and government is supposed to be there for the least of us and not just the people in the Armani suits. Boy, this is our time to stand up.
I like your style, Jay.
Is there any corruption that you've had to deal with specifically in the assessor's office? I think you mentioned a little bit, but can you expand on that just a little bit?
You know, every once in a very long while, you meet somebody who wants to do something sleazy, who wants to say, hey, I'll write a check to your campaign and I want you to talk to me about this piece of property. And there's only one correct response to that, which is to walk away, to put down the phone, to end the conversation. And boy, if Steve Stenger had just known that, what a different community we might live in right now. Because public service is a trust, and nobody is entitled to one of these jobs. You earn it. And the way you earn it is you earn it by working for the people who elected you, not by the people with the biggest pocketbook.
I think that's a great thing. Why does that make you the guy who should be county executive?
Because I have a record. Because you can judge me by that record. Because I have spent 8 years doing the hard parts of this job, not just the easy parts of this job. You know, Teona, when I first went after the fake farmers, the people who were planting winter wheat seeds on the strip mall parking lot, and they said, look, this strip mall is a farm, give me a tax break, I'm just a simple worker in the fields. When I first wanted to go after that, I remember there were some longtime employees in my office, and they said, oh, you don't want to do that. They wouldn't like it. You know, it might be seen as not being pro-business, and all they care about it. And I said, who's they? The people elected me to do this job. And real business owners, you know what they want? They want to be treated fairly. They don't want somebody else scamming the system, pretending to be a farmer when they're not, or pretending to be a charity when they're not, or hiding their airplane. Because when somebody gets away with that, all the honest people wind up paying more. So, look, by now, I think the people of St. Louis County have a pretty good idea who I am and where my heart is. And I'm proud to stand on that record.
I know you got your question next, but sometimes I go a little bit off script. I'm like the off the script girl, so screw some of these questions sometimes. But you're talking about a record, and right now, your opponent, he's building a record. He is acting as the county executive, and might I say he's doing some great things. He's bringing diversity in, and you've got a big job as far as, can you tell me, because I want to know this to make my decision on who to support, your thoughts on diversity, or where are you at? How diverse is your assessor's office right now? You know, those are things
Yeah.
like that that's important to me. So, sorry, Bill.
No,
I
no,
just needed
actually,
to
I
jump
think
in.
that
That's
was
a
a good one.
That's a
to
great
segue to
question. And what I'll say to you, not just for me, but when you make your decision about any race, and especially any elected official who doesn't come from a minority community, I would say judge me by my actions, not by my words. Look at the composition of my assessor's office, and not just the fact that it's one of the most diverse offices in St. Louis County, but look at where the diversity lies.
Okay.
Look at whether it is in top leadership or not. And when you look at my office, you're gonna like what you see.
Okay.
You know,
I have to
some,
check you out.
you will find that there are some elected officials who want to hire people for a token position. They want to put somebody somewhere so they can say they checked the box. Real public service means diversity for its own sake. It means you find the best people and you bring them together, because a diverse team helps you make better decisions.
Amen.
Amen.
We work for all the people of St. Louis County, not just the people in the Central Corridor or South County or North County. And we have staff and leadership that serves all of them because they come from all of those places.
All
I'm
right.
watching you. I'm watching you, Jay.
All right, Jake. Well, we will be back in just a moment. We have Jake Zimmerman in the house. Bill and Teona Wine About the Region, WGNU 920. Be right back.
We'll be back.
Okay, good. Actually, I'm glad we cut off right there, because then we can go into this next section.
We're doing good.
Yeah, that's a great off-script question. That's
Well,
the
I
kind
just
of thing
needed
that,
to know, because I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I will say, Sam's hired some people. He's brought some people to the table with some good jobs, you know, black people. So it's like, and I never really quite, you know, you don't have a
Yeah.
listing or anything about who's in your office. So it's like,
Yeah.
all right, Jake, you know, you up against, in the black
Yeah.
community, you up against,
The
you
thing
know,
that
now,
should-
you show up to stuff.
the thing that should tell you everything you need to know about me is that for about half the time I've been in office, my chief deputy assessor, I mean, my number 2, is an African-American woman, and for the other half the time, it was someone who was not a person of color.
Well, one thing that makes me feel good about you, you had Rosetta one time on one of your campaigns. I've worked with Rosetta too, so.
I mean,
Yeah, Shalana up in there. Shalana
that's
was my
right.
dog.
Shalana was there on my very first campaign.
Really?
You hire good people,
Right.
and then you empower those people.
You sure
You
do.
don't hand somebody a title and say, now go sit in this room, because me and the same old men are gonna sit around up here in the room that matters and make the
So you
decision,
give them a
right?
seat actually at the
That's
table.
exact, the whole point is to empower people,
Yes.
make real
That is the
decisions,
point.
right?
All
All
right,
right.
you talking good stuff. You talking good stuff.
All right,
I'll
Alex,
say
I
that.
told you this was coming. All right, we know how you got into media. How'd you get interested in politics?
My mentor,
We've
Wesley
got,
Bell. I
just so
was
you're
not
aware,
there.
Oh,
we
nice.
got
And,
almost 3 pages, and we got like 5
student
pages
government
left.
president of Flow Valley for about
We
2
got no
years.
time.
And then
Well, we'll have to-
process
we'll have to
got me
kind of
involved in,
speed.
like,
I won't go
local,
up strip anymore.
local politics through
You
Ferguson.
got my
And
promise. I won't go up
that
strip.
branched off into
Hey guys, we got
a
some
bigger
people
St. Louis
watching.
County, working St. Louis County politics for
Hi.
him working, running for
Yes.
county council and, you know, Ferguson City Council.
Oh, so you were involved with Wesley way back in his early campaigns. Were you one of those true believing students that I saw standing at the polling places in his first council campaign? I remember I went to a bunch of polling places. I was shaking hands with voters and volunteers. And everywhere I went, there was someone roughly 19 or 20 years old, right, who was working for Wesley. And he didn't win that race, but I remember thinking, like, this guy's going places because he inspired actual young people, not like all these 70-year-old retired volunteers you saw for all the other campaigns.
Wes has a way with young people. He knows how to rally us all together.
Mhm.
And then he got about, I think he had about 30 of us actually that volunteered for him.
All right, we are back. Bill and Teona here to whine about the region. We have Jake Zimmerman in the house, running for county executive, but he is right now our county assessor. And I'm gonna tell you this, Jake, people are mad at you for raising their taxes. Now, like the interesting sort of thing about that is you have one job obviously in one office, another job in another office. Isn't it just kind of inconvenient You know, especially given the fact that you want to run for county executive, that you raise people's taxes.
You know, in
Good
politics,
question, Bill.
doing your job honestly is always inconvenient because it'll always hack somebody off.
There you go.
But there's another way to do it. You can do it dishonestly. You can hand out favors. You can try to make everybody happy. You know, we saw what happened when the last county executive tried that strategy. And here's the trouble with handing out favors and goodies. There's always somebody in line for a goodie with a nicer, shinier pressed suit than you. There's always somebody in line for a goodie with better lawyers than you, with bigger campaign contributions to give than you. That's exactly what's been wrong with county politics. So look, you elected me to do a job, and I take that job very seriously. My job is to value your home for what it could actually sell for, whether that price is $50,000 or $5 million or anything in between. And what comes with that job is that if I get it wrong, then your tax bill will be wrong and it will be unfair. And so my job is to make it as fair to you as possible. And the nice thing about that is that when you make a mistake, you have a job to do, and the job is to fix it, and where necessary, to talk to the people and to take your medicine. And when I meet politicians who don't want to take their medicine, who want to pretend there isn't a problem, that's where you get the bad behavior. That's where you get the lack of accountability.
But will people vote for a guy who raises their taxes? What is
Well,
this?
remember, Teona, that what I do is I'm in charge of making sure your home is valued fairly. The people who set your taxes, that's the school board, that's the fire district. My only job is to value your property for how it can sell. And I am proud of the fact that we have changed the culture in this office to make it more taxpayer focused, to respond to the people, and yeah, to go after the cheats, to go after the people who want to hide their private jets because they don't want to pay taxes on them. Well, when somebody like that gets away with getting the sweet deal, that is when you wind up paying more, and that's the thing I'm committed to fighting against.
Okay, well, increasing property taxes obviously can be a problem for a lot of people, and especially our seniors who are afraid of being taxed out of their houses. Talk a little bit about how you can help or what can be done to keep seniors in their home.
It's the most important policy issue facing senior citizens in this community and in this state right now, because our leaders in Jefferson City have dropped the ball. And I've been fighting since I was in the legislature to have a real and fair property tax freeze for senior citizens. Because let me tell you what I believe. I believe that in a civilized society, no one should be taxed out of their home. But instead, I'll tell you the story that I hear almost every week. I'm on a fixed income.
Yeah.
You know, my salary is my Social Security or my pension from when I was a teacher, and my salary doesn't go up. But what does go up is that tax bill, year after year after year. Jake, you may not have even changed the value on my property, but whether it's the school district bond issue or the fire district tax levy, doesn't matter what it is, year after year, it seems like my income stays the same, but my taxes go up. And I'll tell you something that a lot of people don't know. Over the course of the last 30 years, this region has gotten to the point where there is tax discrimination. Did you know that if you park a car overnight in Clayton, Missouri, and the property taxes on that car, let's say they're $200 based on the value, okay? And let's say that Jake Zimmerman valued that car exactly right? I got the blue book. It's pretty easy to tell you what your car is worth. So I get the value right, and the Clayton School District and the Clayton Fire Department send you your tax bill, and it's $200. If you now take that car, and instead you park it overnight in the Normandy School District or the Riverview Gardens School District, you want to know what your tax bill will be? It'll be closer to $400.
Wow.
You will pay double the property taxes to live in some parts of North County and South County instead of some parts of the Central Corridor. This is a broken system. It is an unfair system. And the Constitution of the state of Missouri tells me to value your home based on what you can sell it for. But we gotta fix this broken system, because when you have that kind of unfairness, people get taxed out of their homes, and that's wrong.
What prevents the legislator from taking action?
politics.
Okay.
Politics. And let me
Yes.
tell you what angers me, and it's angered me since I was in the legislature, which is that we see some of these Republican elected officials who spend all day talking about how they want your taxes to be low. But it turns out what they really mean is taxes on corporations. They want those to be low, because even while they were saying that, out of the other side of their mouth, they were eliminating the homestead credit, which helped senior citizens in this situation. They were cutting the circuit breaker, which helps senior citizens in this situation. And we as a community have a responsibility to stand up and say, this isn't a Democratic or a Republican issue. This is about right and wrong.
All right, well, let's move on and let's talk a little bit about social justice and police reform, which has gotten a lot of attention, obviously, over the past few years since the murder of Mike Brown in Ferguson. County police have been in the news a lot, of course. People coming to county council meetings have been upset about the way police treat their communities, just sort of in general. People have also been upset and surprised by this $20 million verdict in this discrimination case that an officer brought against the county police. Do we have a problem? Like, tell me, do we have a problem, and what should be done about it?
Well, boy, that jury just told you loud and clear that we have a problem, didn't they? That didn't happen by accident, and the county executive blamed the lawyers for what happened there, but it's not the lawyers' fault. There is pretty clearly a cultural issue in law enforcement, and it's not just the St. Louis County Police Department, and it's a two-way street. Whether you're talking about the kind of shameful behavior that we saw alleged and frankly proven in that discrimination suit, or whether you're talking about a lack of respect for the cop on the street, whether you're talking about a lack of trust between people in the communities that the police serve and vice versa, yeah, we have a problem, and we've all got to work on it. And we're not going to fix it with slogans, and we're not going to fix it with finger pointing. This stuff is hard work. If we learned nothing from Ferguson, if we've learned nothing from the last 5 years, it's that real reform, lasting reform, requires people of good heart to come together, because we've got to build and rebuild trust to make this right.
Well, how did the county get so blindsided by the lawsuit?
It's pretty clearly a failure of leadership. And I want to come back to what I said to you before about how one of the jobs of elected officials is, when something is wrong, the first step is to admit something is wrong, take your medicine, say what needs to be said, and move on. What I see here, and my guess is the failure of leadership goes back years, and it goes back to Steve Stenger, and it goes back to some of his appointees, but it continued through the present day. I bet a lot of people saw a loser coming, and they decided to hide under the desk. And when you hide under the desk, instead of having top leadership come out and say, something is wrong here, I smell a rat, and we need to fix the problem.
Okay, well, what can be done, and what is the county executive's role? Of course, every elected official has restraints on what they can and can't do. What is potentially the county executive's role? What latitude does he have to affect some change in that space?
Well, it starts with leadership, and it starts with making things a priority, and no more shuffling the deck chairs, no more pointing fingers. Let's do the hard work. Let's dig down deep. Let's meet with the real people in that police department who want to make things better and make sure that they have a voice. Because if they don't feel respected by their leadership, then how can you expect a mutual culture of respect in the community?
Should Chief Belmore remain county police chief?
I can't answer that question right now, given what we've seen so far. I can tell you, Teona, that there needs to be more accountability at the top of that department and at the top of leadership than what we have seen before I could feel comfortable answering that question. Because right now, I think the chief has a lot of questions to answer.
Okay, well, we all went through a great trauma, obviously, with Ferguson, and I think the aftermath of Ferguson has contributed to us being where we are at this point. What's your feeling about where we are as a community, especially with where it relates to issues that have been brought into focus by Ferguson?
Bill, on August 9th, 2014, a young man died in the streets of Ferguson. On August 9th, 2014, I was in a hospital room with my wife, Megan,
Wow.
and my son, Gabriel, was born on that day.
Wow.
I spend a lot of time thinking about Gabriel and the opportunities that he will have, the blessings I've been given in life, and what it means to try and create a community where every child in this town has those opportunities. All of us, and especially all of us who are parents, have a deep responsibility to fix this and to fix it for everyone. I don't want my son to grow up and go to school in a time of active shooter drills. I think it is outrageous that the Missouri legislature wants guns in our schools, thinks that they can solve the problem of violence by arming the teachers, right? We can do better than this. And it's more than just rebuilding trust. It's about this community standing up and saying, enough is enough.
What can be done to rebuild and strengthen North County communities?
So, I talked to you before about tax unfairness, and it's a point about the broader picture, which is that jobs bring hope and opportunity, bring stable neighborhoods bring stable public schools bring less stress, less microaggression, and that is what brings good education, and that's what brings opportunity. It's all together.
Well, Jake, I would thought the first thing you would have said was to vote for Jake Zimmerman, but you went right into your spiel.
The only reason anybody should vote for Jake Zimmerman is because you believe that I care about making it better.
Okay.
Now, there is nobody in St. Louis County government or anywhere else who has a magic wand they can wave and change it overnight. But we gotta start. We've been treading water for too long. There's been too many backroom deals, pay to play, nonsense in county government, taking care of the same old privileged interests. We've got to reorient this government towards the people it actually represents.
There you go. And, we want to get started, especially as we move into 2020, just making sure people are informed on the issues. Bill and Teona, Wine About the Region, WGNU 920. We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
Jake, we can talk to you for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
Well,
asked
like
us to turn to 2 hours.
You can't go getting me all worked up right before
And
you
do
go
the
to
same
commercial.
thing I do. He do this finger thing. I do some with my hand too. But Paul said whenever we can start going to 2 hours.
He's got something to do after this.
Oh yeah. Not today, necessarily, but he's no.
Like I'm just feeling. The only reason I would feel a little like upset is because how people will be like, well, you didn't ask him about this. Well, you didn't ask him about that. Well, you know what? We didn't have time. we had it here.
Jake is in the house. Thank you for getting up this morning with us. I don't even want to get up.
Remember that part about how I got a 5-year-old? Trust me, I was up.
Okay. I didn't know he was born on. Oh, wow. You'll never forget
I
it.
was in that hospital room with Megan watching
You
the
should
news
put that in
read
your literature somewhere, and with a picture of him or something. That's good. That'd be great.
It's a very personal thing, and I talk about it where it's appropriate.
Okay.
Talking about that.
Wait till he gets older and you have him like with you, and that'd be good.
Sure, we'll get into gun violence. We'll talk gun violence a little bit. But
Good
we gotta
morning,
shake
Sharon.
some of this down, and we might have to kind of
John Bowman says good morning.
lighten around.
Good morning, John.
Somebody said good morning.
Everybody says
Oh
good
yeah,
morning.
Sharon Pace, John Bowman, Sarah's daughter.
Hey guys, thanks for being up with us. Thanks for being up. Everybody want to hear what is Jake talking about? What does he got to say? What's up, Jake? What you talking about, man? They should be sharing it. Make sure you share it on your because this is good. This is good. We could talk to you forever. We are live. We're live.
800-296-1300. 800-296-1302. That's 800-296-1302.
Okay, I know we're gonna have to cut.
Is there any ones like that you look through there that you think we definitely should go through while you going through?
Yes, I mean, I definitely want to make sure we get to some of this sort of
Cause we got one more
political
segment.
rated stuff. I mean, that's what we're doing.
Do I need to cross anything out? Cause the thing that's good about you is sometimes you answer our next, so I don't know if you looked at the questions and you
Yeah.
know to do that.
I'd say
but you
if you
just
got it, cut, let's keep it about substance. Let's talk about the real stuff. Like, no real person cares about campaign strategy. Where are you gonna go to get your votes? You know what I'm saying? Like, if we only have 10 minutes left, I'd rather talk about issues.
Issues, okay. Let's cut into the issues. Are we back, Kip? Are we back?
We are back again. Bill and Teona wind about the region here with Jake Zimmerman.
All right, thank you for getting up with us this morning, Jake. Let me ask you about a question that's near and dear to me. Moms Demand Action now. I'm a part of Moms Demand Action. I would like to see it more visual in North County because we have a lot of shootings in North County. You were at Moms Demand Action meeting recently. How do we deal with gun violence as a community? I have my thoughts. Like, we had a show on gun violence. I don't know if you checked it out or not, but my opinion is sometimes I feel like we're in the room with the politicians to where I go in the heart of it with my kids' friends and the guys that's in the streets. And I know sometimes people are kind of scared to mix and mingle, but I'm not. I want to know, hey, why do you have that gun? I've even been known to say, hey, you ain't finna go out here in the streets and go shoot some. That's the mama role in me. Let me hear your take.
Well, if you heard me at Moms Demand Action, then you probably saw I got a little bit fired up because I'm angry about this. I don't want to see another child die in this community. I don't want to see another senseless gun violence tragedy here or anyplace else. And I've had it with the politicians in Jeff City who want to impose a different set of values on us. Look, if the rules need to be different in rural Missouri, in a place where it's really true that you're talking about someone's shotgun to use for hunting, that's fine. But I'm tired of those rural leaders imposing their values on us, trying to tell us we need to have guns in our schools. It is time for us to fight to make sure that this community has the opportunity to impose the rules that we want to impose to keep our streets and our communities and our schools and our places of worship safe. Safe for our children, safe for our senior citizens, and everybody in between.
All right.
So you can expect me to be a leader on this issue, and you can expect me to keep talking about it because the stakes are too high.
All right, well, you mentioned schools, and schools obviously are so important to keep people engaged and educated and sort of constructive in their lives. Tell people what the role is of the county executive potentially. I mean, when it comes to schools, does the county executive have any latitude to set, a school's sort of policy agendas?
Well, come back to what we talked about before, which is it all goes together. If kids go to school in the morning dealing with trauma because of lack of nutrition or because of lack of safety, because of gunshots, then it's going to be awfully hard to learn. And if parents don't have economic opportunities, if they don't have a chance to get a job at a fair wage to take care of their family, then you're going to have less stable households and it's going to be harder for kids to get that education. I was talking with Dr. Pearson about some of the challenges in the Normandy schools just the other day, and he told me that we're a full service agency, right? We've got to take care of the whole child, and that means the whole set of issues that you've got to work on to help a kid show up and be ready to learn. So don't tell me that the county executive doesn't have anything to say about that, because your county government has an absolute responsibility to work on behalf of making the entire community stronger.
Okay, well, let's jump into health real quick, and we could sit here and talk to Jake for
We could
2
talk to
hours.
him, yeah.
And we're trying to condense everything down just a little
Yes,
bit.
we are.
But health disparities, especially for North County, are very significant and lead to poorer outcomes than other parts of the county.
Bill, a black baby born in St. Louis County is more likely to die than a white baby. A black baby is more likely to be born prematurely than a white baby. And while tragically that is true nationwide, it is worse in St. Louis County than it is nationwide. Now, those statistics I just quoted at you, those come from the county's own health department. So my question is, when is the county going to step up and do something about this? There are proven strategies that work to improve outcomes for maternal health, to make sure that doctors get educated about how to treat patients with respect, so that patients of color, people from minority communities, are treated the same way as affluent, privileged patients from the Central Corridor by those same doctors. We can work on this, but we've got to admit it's a problem.
Well, let's jump into this. Did you favor the Better Together plan?
I did not. And the reason I did not, because like everybody else, I think we've got to fix some challenges in this region. But the Better Together plan was flawed because it was constructed by a bunch of so-called elites sitting in a back room, making a backroom deal, and then they walked out of that smoke-filled room and they said, people of St. Louis, we know what's good for you. And now we're going to shove it down your throat.
Where do you want me to go, Bill? Sometimes we get a little confused.
No.
Should I go on to?
No, I'm gonna. We only have a few more minutes, so let's jump into public transportation.
Okay, let's do that.
Obviously, for any metropolitan area, public transportation is one of the most important things. Talk a little bit about metro ridership. Maybe even touch on the safety issues that the region is concerned
And
about.
let's keep it brief so we can ask you as many last-minute questions as we can. Let's
Look,
get it, Jake.
Public transit is incredibly important, and it's not just important so some people can get to some Cardinal games, right? Public transit is how people
I'm so
get
glad
to
you
their
said that.
jobs.
Because my son definitely says that the transportation in St. Louis is different than, like, he lives in Seattle now, or when he went to Mizzou, which MIZ, I think you're MIZ too, right?
My dad is,
Okay,
so
well,
ZRU.
All right, but he says it's different, so I think safety and all that on the
So-
public transportation is an
So
issue.
safety is a huge issue. People have to feel comfortable riding. And look, you've seen what's happened, at least in county leadership.
Right.
There's been too many politicians squabbling about who's to blame, pointing fingers, trying to pick a fight with other regional leaders about who pays for 18 cops on the Metro link. Maybe we should care a little bit less about who gets the credit and whose budget gets hit, and care a little bit more about people feeling safe on the train. And then maybe we need to recognize that public transit is a regional challenge. If you need to get on the bus to get to your job, you don't care what municipal boundary the bus goes across. What you care about is that the bus route is there to get you where you need to go. This is a regional challenge, and it requires regional leaders to work with each other, not squabble with each other.
I hear that. Well, real quick, we're gonna bounce through a couple things real fast. As far as metro expansion, north, south, westport.
Wherever it can serve the community and really serve the community, and that requires community buy-in, not backroom deals.
All right, airport privatization. What should the county's role be? Quickly.
I have significant concerns about the process here, and you know that there's no way to give a quick answer there, but when you talk about a big regional asset that serves all of us, I want to make sure that everyone is represented at that table, not just a few consultants in fancy suits.
Your opponent, Sam Page, what is he doing right? What is he doing wrong? Briefly.
Look, he hasn't sold the government to the highest bidder, so that makes him better than the last guy. He shows up for the meetings, so that makes him better than the last guy. But look, the region is entitled to expect more than just he's honest and he shows up for the meetings. This is going to be a contest about vision and about leadership. And my hope is that people will kick the tires and they will like my vision for how we make this a better and a stronger St. Louis County.
Okay, we're gonna go through a
What's
few
your
more
personal
things.
question for Red? I like it though.
There's those who are kind of not pleased with you jumping in this county executive race.
Oh, yeah.
I even got some blowback real quick when I put the information up, the flyer up on Facebook.
Right.
I got somebody who happens to be an elected official asking, why is this guy who just raised everyone's property taxes trying to take on a guy saving us from Steve Stanger? And someone else say Zimmerman's entry to oppose Sam Page is a selfish political move. Zimmerman was strongly urged to run against Stanger, and he refused. Sam Page is in the process of dealing with the mess created by Stanger. How do you respond to these critics?
You're telling me that a bunch of political insiders criticized me for giving the voters in a democracy a choice? Look, Bill, let me tell you something. In a real democracy, elections aren't decided by 5 people sitting around in some back room. Elections are decided by the people that the government actually serves. My job, and the job of the guy sitting in that chair right now, is to earn that support, to ask real people for their votes. So with all due respect to any of those political insiders who might be yapping at you, what I'm concerned about is how do we make county government better, and I'm excited to run on my record.
All right, real quick personal question. Like to have people know a little bit about you.
He does funny stuff.
I do a little funny stuff, so real quick personal question. What is the best thing in the world and the worst thing in the world about being a redhead?
The best thing in the world about being a redhead is that you get to see other redheads like Teona who want to come and join the community.
Team
You
Red
know-
for another week or so.
Bill, when I was a kid, I thought being a redhead was the worst thing in the world because the other kids would call me silly nicknames and I had freckles and it felt a little bit awkward.
I've had
But,
fun with this red hair.
All right.
sometimes it's okay to be a little bit different.
All right. Well, we want to thank Jake for joining us.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Jay.
you
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so
And again,
much.
we want to thank Paul Berry and the great folks here at WGNU 920 AM for putting up with us for one more week. Tiana?
We like to thank our listeners for tuning in. We're going to continue to whine about the region because we care. If you have any ideas for topics or people to interview, message our show. I think you already know it. It's BT Winery, or on Facebook. You can email us at btwinery.com or
All right.
btwinery@gmail.com. And I have a confession to make. Because we have no steak and shakes in North County, every time I come to this show, I have to go get a
All
steak
right.
and
Well, you're
shake.
going to have to get a steak and shake,
Oh,
but
my
just remember,
God.
we are the only solution to improve our community.
Yes, we are. Hopefully 2 hours soon, guys. We'll be giving you 2 hours real soon.
Back next week.